Robert sprung the introduction thing on me, but fortunately I've learned a life hack with large panels, which is to let everybody on the panel introduce themselves. So let's start at the far end with Ken, and tell us a little something about how what you do and what your business does pertains to advances in AI.
Sounds great. My name is Kent Sanderson. I'm the CEO and founder of Composabl. Composabl is a platform for multi-agent AI systems that control industrial processes and systems and logistics. And for the last 7 years, I've been focused on exactly that at 3 different companies and designed over 200 autonomous AI systems for Fortune 500 companies.
Hi, I'm Christy DeCure. I lead strategic alliances and robotics for NVIDIA. So what we essentially do, if you watch the keynote just now, Deepu talked about how we don't build robots, but we integrate our technology into those that do. And so we find strategic partners to do that, and that's what my team does.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Diane Aldridge. I work for Amazon Web Services. My current role is I lead, my team lead global business development and go-to-market for industrial AI. It's a mouthful. Basically what we do is we work people that data scientists, brilliant coders that build these AI technology, and then we apply into industrial space. My personal background has been with AWS for about 5 years. I've been doing this for 5 years, but before that, I spent 2 decades and in a lot of your seats. I was a global manufacturing executive, so I was a factory floor engineer. That's how I started. So I spent 20 years in that sector, so I'm very excited to be in this spot at this stage of where the technology is, so we can use technology to solve some real problems in the areas I loved.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bernd Treidel. I was the Director of Product Management Marketing for Siemens Factory Automation for the last 6 years. Just recently switched jobs, but I'm still with Siemens. So my focus for the last 6 years really was how we can leverage new technologies in industry like Edge and AI to improve manufacturing overall. Yeah? Because we have PLCs for such a long time, we're doing all kinds of things, but how can we leverage new technologies, make machines and production even more efficient and more resilient and more adaptive? Huh?
How many people on the panel have recently changed roles within their company? Okay, so I mean, well, you run the company, so you can call yourself what you want to call yourself at the end of the day. How much of that is a product of AI just completely changing the game and having to shift corporate structures?
A product of my move. We've had the Jetson product's been primarily an edge computer for a while, and a lot of us have dabbled around in IoT. Most of my career has been in Internet of Things, but 6 months ago I came over to really focus in on the strategic alliances. It's a huge investment for NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a big topic. So we have some reorganizations within Siemens, and we just launched a business group really focusing around copilots, industrial copilots, to bring all the different activities together, really make sure we bundle them and we can drive it forward as quickly as possible to get results out of it.
Yeah.
And for me, when I first joined AWS, first 3 years was machine learning dominated the conversation, because we use machine learning to do predictive maintenance, to do using other like computer vision for quality inspections, those kind of things. And then in the past 2 years, because of GenAI, it just sucked all the oxygen in the room, and then that consumed almost everybody. So that's the shift between like how dominant right now the generative AI is covering everything.
Yeah, we had a conversation prior to the panel. We're going over what we were going to discuss, and I feel like the 4 of you are kind of bifurcated as far as whether or not we should really talk about Gen AI and LLMs in depth. We have to, because it's what everybody's talking about right now. Robert, at the beginning of the conversation, alluded to, he called it the Super Bowl problem, which again, AI is this magic technology that's coming along that will transform the way we do a lot of things. How large of a role specifically will Gen AI and LLMs play in industry?
That's a great question. So first of all, I think that generative AI did us a favor by inspiring us all that we could all be involved in AI. That AI is something that's accessible, you can talk to it, you can chat with it. But in general, I think AI research over time has gotten this following thing wrong. It kind of has this one-track mind. At any time, there's one particular technology to rule them all. So if you go back all the way back to like the 80s, it was expert systems. And we actually talked about expert systems kind of the same way we talk about generative AI today. It's going to replace doctors and lawyers, and it's going to become conscious. And then there's different waves. Then it's, supervised learning, and the prediction will change absolutely everything. And then it's deep reinforcement learning. And what I want to encourage us to do, and what I think, is that if you take an engineering approach takes a complex system and puts the right components in the right places. So if you identify, okay, generative AI is about language. Okay, there's certain places for language, in an automated system. But then there's other things like learning by practicing and predicting things. And if you think about it like a car or a plane, you would never think there's just going to be one component. And so if I think we start thinking of AI as this well-engineered system, then you can put the right components in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, you actually put it really well on that conversation that we had earlier, which is the different approaches between engineers and AI researchers, and like they come at things from a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm an engineer, so I also think as the agentic or automation moving, take on the center stage, I think a lot of people in this room probably are engineers. I think engineers will take on a more important role
Raise your hand if you're an engineer. Oh.
There you go. Yeah. So because I think it would take a very important role, because if you think about where AI machine learning is, it's a age of coders, data scientists. But as you automate, like where you automate, as you do automation, as you do agentic, you can't just stay on the surface there. You have to go deep for people that truly understand the workflows, the nuances, the machines. So, and then also, Ken's, we're talking about from that to physical AI, it needs engineers. It needs engineering discipline. It needs engineering practice, because right now AI practice is software practice. To actually go into the physical world, into machines, into factories, into real processes, actually the deep domain knowledge is really what's going to take center stage.
I assume everybody was at the keynote. Most of you are probably at the keynote this morning with Deepu from NVIDIA. And one of the things that he was discussing, you and I were actually discussing previously, is synthetic data and the role, continuous loop learning, and the role that AI is going to play in actually teaching the robots, teaching the embodied AI how to do their job.
Yeah, NVIDIA, our approach to training robots or building robots is a 3-computer approach. As you probably saw, we focus on training, simulation, and then put that down to the bot itself. And then it's a continuous loop, because you'll always be training, and then you're simulating that environment, and then putting it down on the robot again. And so it's a continuous loop that goes on to improve. To address your first question about LLMs and AI, and LLMs has just given us another way to interact with the robot, which is unbelievable in the sense that we can now interact with language, and that's been a real game changer. So that is one of the many ways, but that's our approach. We focus on the training, focus on simulating, putting it on the robot, and then repeat.
Yeah, so with robots, it's natural language interaction.
Yeah.
And I would actually add that I agree with that paradigm, but that paradigm can apply beyond robots as well.
Yeah.
So if you think about how a factory operator learns, over years and decades how to accomplish, some very specialized skill, like, controlling a process or setting set points on a machine, it's actually very similar. It's learning by practicing. Mm-hmm. And so I think this use of synthetic data to allow humans or agents that will become the brains for robots to practice is a very tried and true paradigm. If you think about it, that's actually how every factory operator learns how to do what they do.
Yeah.
I'm going to tweak the question for you a little bit, if you don't mind. Let's talk about misconceptions when it comes to LLM, and like specifically when a client approaches you. What do people generally, even technological people, think it can do now that it absolutely cannot?
No, I think maybe what your boss thinks what AI can do is that AI solves all the problems at once. And just to add on, so data is key. So ChatGPT doesn't know about your machine. So somehow you have to get the data about your machine into a large language model first if you want to have an operator who can basically get better recommendations out of a large language model later on. So this is really, data is important. And ChatGPT and all the other large language models know a lot, but they typically don't know all of your machines and all the specifics of your operation. So all of this data first has to go into a large language model. And then, of course, if you run out of data, then you come to the synthetic data and how can you continuously learn and improve. And I think large language models overall are good for the engineering part, for the operations part, to give recommendations to make workers more effective. If you go really into machine operations and AI takes over the machine, I think we are making headway, we are making steps there, but we are not quite there yet that we really let our AI model run a machine. So I think when we go into operations, we look more at the supervised AI, into specific tasks, vision-based, quality detection, all of these things. And then step by step, we learn more and we expand the skills of an AI model there. But data is the key for everything. Without data, the ChatGPT is not going to give you any better answers, or any other model for that matter. Okay.
I suspect I know how specifically the engineers on this panel are going to answer this question, but is part of all of your jobs being pragmatic and tempering expectations with regards to what the technology can currently do?
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't hear the last part.
Is part of your job tempering expectations as far as what AI can currently do?
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think I want to bring it back to this kind of engineering approach, because even now the way we're talking, we're assuming that generative AI is AI. There's
it's getting
lots
good.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different forms of AI, right? So, and honestly, maybe even take one step back. If you think of something like a software agent, a PID controller is a software agent. An optimization algorithm is a software agent. A model predictive controller is a software agent. Lots of things an expert system is a software agent. And they each have different characteristics. So I'm talking to the engineers here. They each have different characteristics. So when I learned as a mechanical engineer to design systems, I learned to pull the right components. I didn't say, the gear is here, so the spring is dead, or you should only use nails and you should never use screws. You decide based on the engineering requirements what you should use. And so an optimization algorithm has specific characteristics that are obviously better than an LLM for certain things. An LLM has certain characteristics that are obviously better than an expert system at certain things. So I think the expectation that I often have to temper is, what is a large language model? A large language model is the statistics of what characters belong next to each other. So a large language model reads the internet and says, well, the letter H is much more likely to appear between the letters T and E, in the English language than the letters S and W, right? And so it reads, to your point, Bernd, it reads the whole internet, and so that's what it knows, and it's statistically saying, well, these letters belong next to each other. Now, when it comes to interacting with a machine, that might be exactly the engineering component you need. When it comes to making a decision about a set point, that is the opposite of what you need. You need a model predictive controller or a deep reinforcement learning model. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to help people understand what each component is, what a bolt does, what a screw does, and what a nail does. And then you as an engineer already know how to decide how to put those components together.
I'm totally going to his class tomorrow.
What's that?
I said I'm totally going to his class tomorrow.
Okay.
So in my line of
It's
work,
8 a.m.
Yeah.
and you've got 4 hours to get there.
in my line of work with AWS have a wide range of customers. So on average day, I will talk to 2-3 customers from top Fortune 500, 100 companies to small, medium SMBs. I think in general, there are 3 different camps. I put them in 3 different buckets. One is the one that I will call them the talkers and the thinkers, and they don't move. I have customers I've been talking over a year and have not done anything, and they just want to try to figure out. There are a lot of fear, and there are a lot of I know I need to do something. I'm talking to AWS, and that's what I'm going to do, but nothing actually moved forward. The other one is I call them the early adopters, and they get on it. They were on it, and do a lot of things and move fast. This tend to be not to be industrial company. They're your FSIs, the financial companies, and then those type of company, and then some sort of a healthcare, and then that insurance company that have large customer service, kind of because that's where the low-hanging fruit is. That's the fast movers that they're experimenting. A lot of them are sort of in the middle, which I think is where industrial company and what I think is the right approach is they're started to move and do testing and do proof of concept and in a variety of stages. Industrial companies tend to be more cautious. And then when I talk to people that build a product and they tend to get frustrated, they say, Diane, why are they moving so slow? Why industrial company move slower than that? I said, because we, in industrial space, we are dealing with physical things. If you move too fast and then everything need to be certain. Otherwise, people could die and things will explode, right? Because we talk about engineering practice. These are built out of centuries, right? And then like Ken said, so every single rules that we know from ISA, for API, from IEEE, every single rules, if you look at behind it, something happened, something bad happened, somebody died, something exploded. So that's why we need to move with caution. But AI is already out, so you can't afford not to move, because if you don't, other people will catch up, and then next year you're here, and then you're going to find you're really, really behind. So I think the middle bucket is the right way to do it. There are a lot of low-hanging fruit that for you to try.
And maybe I agree with Diane and also with the segmentation of the different customer types. I think it's really important also for you to think about what kind of problem do you want to solve, and really think about that. And when there's a menu of possibilities, what you can do. And what we also see now, and also on the show during a fair here, there are more and more products that use AI inside. So one thing is basically to build your own AI, to do the training, come up with all the things, or you buy a product that already has a pre-trained model for your specific purposes inside, so that you can leverage these products that have AI inside instead of doing all the work yourself. So I think that's another thing to think about, what I saw with customers when we talked with them, and suddenly we said, oh, I don't need to learn all about AI. If AI is inside, I just use a product. I need to understand to a certain extent what's going on, but I don't need to go in every detail with AI. Yeah? So this is also a possibility, but it really starts with a problem, and then you need to decide, okay, what's the right first step to start, and then also what do you want to scale, and how do you want to move on later on with it?
So I feel like agentic AI being somewhat of the new buzzword and being the thing that's kind of taken over, at least in industry, for generative AI and LLMs. For the non-half of the audience, the half of the audience who aren't engineers, can somebody give me a concise definition of agentic AI and how it differs?
Yeah. Let me take a crack at it. When I talk to customers, they're thinking about agents as, finally there's AI that can actually do something, right? And an AI that can actually take an action, in the real world. Now, for us engineers, that's a tricky subject, because you say, well, the PID controller was invented in 1912 by the U.S. Navy, and that makes decisions in the real world. So let's make a couple distinctions. The first distinction is between analysis and perception and action, right? So most of what machine learning has been doing for the past 10 or 15 years is actually perception. So computer vision is perception, identifying something that's happening. Anomaly detection is perception. Classification, clustering, perception. And in some ways, what you do with a language model is perception, mostly. Action is deciding what to do. And so I think what people are getting really excited about is, there's AI models that can actually take action also. Now, to me, what the real interesting difference is, whether you're talking about an LLM or deep reinforcement learning, whatever type of AI you're talking about, there are characteristics, very attractive, unique characteristics in decision making that AI agents can do that traditional automation cannot. And that's what I encourage you to explore on your own and find out about is, okay, well, what can an AI agent do that's difficult for a PID controller or an optimization algorithm? A lot of the answer is dealing with variability. Being very robust, being very adaptive, being able to kind of be more autonomous in what it can research and find out. But really, to me, the big difference when you talk about agents is the difference between perception and action in AI.
So we talked a little bit about, I guess, educating or training the robots, but obviously a big part of this conversation has to be educating the humans as well, the people who are actually going to be working alongside these agents and these robots. What can people who do what you do to educate workers and help, I guess, prepare them for what's coming along in technology?
Okay. So I think first to understand that not AI is not going to take away everybody's job. So it's supposed to make you more efficient. It's supposed to help workers to be more efficient, make better decisions, maybe help them to reduce downtime, improve efficiency of a machine, improve efficiency of operations. Really to understand that AI is here to help and not really to replace anybody, especially not a worker who is at the line. So I think this is one key element, and really to understand what are the benefits for a worker at the plant, at the floor, what are the benefits for engineers with AI, and that it's not going to replace anybody. So I think this is one key element to start with, make sure that everyone understands it and that it's not a threat, but it's supposed to help when you're out there. Yeah? Okay.
So when I put a company into 3 buckets, I think in general people, you can put them in 3 different buckets too. There's people that just absolutely refuse to engage, and then they just refuse. Say, it's not going to do anything for me, it's not going to go anywhere, it's hallucinating. No, right? There's that group of people. There's also like enthusiastic, like AI 2 junkies. They're on there every time and do that. I'm borderline to that group, but it's that group. And the majority people are there, but there's a mix of one open-minded, but also there are a lot of misunderstanding and fear. So I think is everybody's job to try to evangelize and learn and be curious, and then do that. You start with yourself and start with the next people on your team. When I go to a customer, and when I talk to a customer, I always say, look, I'm not going to be here to tell you AI is not going to take your job. Nobody can tell you that. I don't know. AI can replace my job, right? But what I can tell you is I'm here get the permission from your leader. We should work together to the minimum. After this experience, you gain some experience that you can put it on your resume and you go forward. And hopefully I can remove some fear, and then we can learn something fun together and then improve your current daily life in a micro improvement way. So I think it's every leader's responsibility to start. First, if you're in the position, get the tools to your people. It's up, and then the responsibility is on the individual. You put the tools there for them to use, and if they refuse to engage, that's on the individual, right? But as leader, if you're in the power, open that door and let people start trying that. And then good old change management, right? Because we have the lean change management, and we all have done it, like especially in industrial space. We have Toyota, GE, all those disciplines to do organization change management. That's really, really important, because AI fail is not because of technology. It's because our human beings. It's because of fear. It's because of politics and all that. So you can't minimize that. So it's in all the leaders here, it's in your hands to say, how do I do that? And then make sure that you employ the discipline that you already know, the process improvement that you already know. Apply those discipline to help people, because this thing is moving so fast. My worries is when people got hit, they got blindsided and they don't know what hit them. We really, really, like the devastation that the blue collar job disappeared and nobody helped them. Let's not make that happen for white collar people. So that's why it's kind of like a plea. So for every leaders in this room, and then should just think about that a little bit, because it's people's livelihood.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. I think your whole, the advice about getting your people to use it early and often is important. I would just add that using it early and often, you will be surprised if you aren't already. I think we're all in the same boat of just seeing how AI affects our day-to-day lives. It's the same thing in the work environment, but once you start engaging with the technology, you will be surprised at what your workers learn, what they teach you, and the same thing applies to the jobs and how it can impact the job. They will come up with ideas for AI that you didn't anticipate, and that is where the real ideation comes, and you are like, I didn't even think it was going to impact the job like this. So that's why I say early, often, and just really, really try to push people. They will not be comfortable. I didn't even like using Copilot or anything until I started seeing everybody else around me be more productive. And I'm like, okay, I'm the last man out of the chute. But really, I think early and often is really good advice.
These are all great suggestions. I'll just add one more. Find and be someone who explains concepts of AI in plain language. My favorite quote is by Albert Einstein. He said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. So if you're in front of a technology vendor and they're using a bunch of jargon that you don't understand, they don't actually understand AI well enough, according to Albert Einstein. So find people that can explain it to you. You know, say, listen, I'm an engineer. Like, trust me, I am a technical person. So you should be able to explain it to me in terms that I can understand, but also you should be that person as well. Once you understand what an LLM does, once you understand what an agent does, you challenge yourself to explain in plain language what those things are.
Yeah, I think something that maybe gets overlooked a lot in this process is that you already have these repositories of knowledge, these people who are working for you, and know what they do better than anybody else. How, from that standpoint, insofar as actually integrating new technologies into the workplace, how can you bring the workers themselves on and get them involved in those processes?
I think it's like Diane said, you have to start from the beginning. So when you plan something like that, you already involve workers really from the start, from the beginning. Also talk with workers about it, what do you want to achieve, what is the benefit, and what's the benefit for them in it. And then, of course, you start with a POC, proof of concept, maybe with one station where you test something with one machine, when you learn from it. But when you learn from a technology point, but you also learn from a people point. How do you explain it to people? How to bring more people in? And when you look at the workers, also see that, like Diane said, find the ones who are more open to it, who want to learn it, who want to do something with it, and work with them on that and do the first step.
So I'll give a very quick example. One of my customers, one of the largest paper goods manufacturers. They make a lot of packaging and everything, paper goods. So they have a problem on the factory floor, which is it's a very expensive machine, costs about $250,000, and every hour this thing down, it costs them $50,000 of revenue. That's what this machine will produce, and they constantly have this unplanned downtime, right? So what we do is they have about 50 technicians. 24/7, this is a 24/7 run plant, and then they look after this machine. So they have a problem, and then I'm sure a lot of people recognize. One is, out of this 50 people workforce, there are only 3 people that know this machine in and out. They're lifers. They've been there forever, but they're near retirement. On the other side of the age, they have a hard time hiring people. Once they hire them, they have a long time. They need to train them to the point that they can actually independently troubleshoot this machine. Once they get to this point, finally get them trained, they keep quitting. They can't keep them long enough. So this is the problem, constant problem. So we just use a simple standard large language model. We build a technician sort of, we call it a factory floor assistant. We linked all their knowledge that they know, like a service log, safety menus, operation menus, troubleshooting guide, FAQs, all here. So on the factory floor, people can just quickly do level 100, 200 queries. This thing is vibrating. What's going on? What does this LED light means? So they can quickly get faster. So just this simple chatbot, if you find the right use case, we cut down, in the 6 months we tracked, we cut down their unplanned downtime at 20%. If you run a factory, 20% unplanned downtime cutting, it goes straight to the bottom line. It means millions of output. So it's a simple example, and then these folks are just convinced. They like this stuff. They will just query it, and it's natural because they use their language to do it. It's just a very quick example. I think instead of thinking about what can AI do, think about your problem. I always say, forget about technology. Tell me your problem. Let us worry about the technology. We can pick machine learning. We can pick IoT. We can pick whatever, sensors. But we will solve that problem so you can get them engaged. If you solve a real problem, you will get them engaged.
Yeah, so after this question, we're going to open it up to the audience. So think of your questions now. If you have one, raise your hand, and somebody will come around with a microphone, and you can ask our panelists. This is maybe a thorny topic, or maybe like a minefield for some people, but is enough being done right now to standardize the technology? And is there a role that regulation can play in terms of standardizing AI in industry?
I mean, I feel like there has to be some form of standardization in order for us to progress in a way that we're cohesive. The one thing about AI is that it's extremely engaging and collaborative. Now that the technology is moving fast, and what I'm seeing as someone that looks across a lot of companies and tries to get them to engage with our technologies is the collaboration. Just like we were talking about this before the show, the cross collaboration amongst different companies to solve real problems. We are all so eager to find solutions to big problems that I think a form of standardization can help us do that more effectively.
Yeah, I think that I'm hoping that some sort of standard, something like lean manufacturing or Six Sigma, will evolve for AI or agents, or how to use agents to optimize, transform business processes. I think we need a methodology. We need an organizing structure and a way to think about these things. I mean, that's kind of how us engineers are. And I think it will take a while, and I don't know where it's going to come from, but I think something like, Six Sigma for, multi-agent systems or whatever it's called is going to have to evolve so that millions of engineers can do what they do with lean manufacturing with AI in factories.
Yeah, that's.
So it's also, so right now AI is evolving very rapidly, and there's not a lot of standardization and maybe also regulations and safety aspects in there, but also the more we combine AI with robotics, the more we will have a need of having some regulations, some standards on how to deal with it, because if you have a robot dog out there and it's completely on its own and it's running around, you want to have some safety mechanisms in place. And also, if you put machine parameters from an AI model back into the machine, you want to make sure the machine is not going to crash. Yeah? So there is a need for more regulation, standardization, and how we bring up the safety aspect in it. But this is still some way to go. Yeah? This is not there yet. And right now, everything is evolving so rapidly that it's hard to standardize just yet. But I think over the next years, this is an effort that has to be taken on.
Okay, so we have time for maybe one or two questions. Does anyone have one? Raise your hand, Mr. Gentleman.
So as far as data, how important do you guys think is getting the having a robust data infrastructure in a manufacturing setting is important for building these AI systems on top of it? And have you guys had any experience with customers that didn't have that infrastructure and had issues implementing these systems?
So, okay. So the data is super important because you can have a best model, you can have the best ideas. If the data you get out of a machine is not good, not the right data, your model is not going to work, even with predictive maintenance. And also standardizing and contextualizing data, because maybe you have multiple machines from different vendors. And if you have just speed or temperature, if the temperature is one time in Celsius and the other time in Fahrenheit, the model is not going to make any sense of it. And the same with speed. If it's kilometers per hour and then miles per hour, it's not going to work. So you really have to make sure that you have a good data that goes into your AI, into your models, to make sure that also the AI has a chance of making sense of it and giving you good recommendations. So this is really the foundation of everything that builds on top of it.
I think there's two sides of it, in my opinion. One is you have a lot of data that you need already. I mean, when I was at Microsoft, I used to explain to people what a historian was. They're like, oh, they don't have any data. I'm like, have you ever heard of a historian? There's data. So a lot, I deployed an AI for a Fortune 500 company where we built a completely autonomous, operator, essentially, that started from historian data from OSI Soft Pi. However, the other side of that coin is some data is not there. So if an operator says, listen, I got to see this or I got to hear this in order to operate it expertly, then you might have to install sensors, and that's data that you might not have. The other part of the question is data infrastructure. I was at a dinner last night, and a very, very great point was made that, in some ways, engineers were the original data scientists, right? But there's not democracy as far as access to data. And if you give more access to data to more engineers, then you're likely to get a lot, better adoption. And I think that's where your infrastructure question is really, really astute.
I just want to add, I think we've established here data is extremely important in this whole process. The quality of your data is very important. There's so many tools out there. There's a lot of, you can buy data sets if you didn't know this. There's lots of different types of data available to get you started. And there's a number of very high quality ISVs that can curate data. We've got a lot of frameworks to help you with your data. So there's a lot of tools available for those of you that are just getting started. Data is probably the most important part of the whole workflow.
Okay, and then maybe one more topic is you have to choose the right data. Today, what we see quite often is that a data scientist tells us, just get all the data of a machine. And a bottling machine, filling line, one single machine, a filler has 250,000 tags, variables inside a PLC. And you cannot pull 250,000 tags out of a PLC. That's going to kill the PLC and then kill the machine. Yeah? So you have to find ways also to identify what data is more likely to have an impact and help you to really build your AI model. And what data maybe it's just a timer, it's something internal, nobody needs to know about it. So this is also really important to come from this hundreds of thousands of variables in a typical machine down to, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000 variables that you really need to monitor and you need to pull out of a PLC without crashing the PLC at the end of the day. Yeah?
All right, it's a good question when everybody wants to jump on it. Can you real concise, real quick?
Real quick, but
sorry, we're running low on time.
All right, I'll try real quick. Just in the first part of the digital transformation journey, we're in the process of documenting all our processes. So it was two questions. One, I'm curious, a tool or a method to document all those processes, and two, how important do you think our semantics and ontologies are when you're first documenting your processes?
Love it. So, this is where I think a methodology is key. So I've been working on a methodology called machine teaching for some years, and I wrote a book about it. But the point is, you need a procedure and a methodology to capture and codify subject matter expertise, okay? And that's more than what you find in your standard operating procedures. You need to be able to interview an expert operator and help draw out of them what makes them good at what they do. Because in a lot of cases, the experts cannot explain to you why what they're doing is working. So the reason why I call it machine teaching is it's more like a teaching function that is able to understand what an expert is doing and then codify it. I worked with a company in Europe, a large oil company, that they have a whole role called translators. And the job of translators is to understand AI, to go into the field, interview the experts, and codify this knowledge. So regardless of how you do it, you need to find methodologies, you need to define roles, and you need to be very, very aggressive about capturing and codifying this expertise.
Can anyone answer in a minute? No? Okay. In that case, I want to thank everybody on our panel so much for joining us. And stay tuned because in 15 minutes, we have a panel on 5G hosted by Jan Diekman of Ericsson coming up. Thanks, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.